Edgar Garcia, Garrett Phelps, Radhiyah Ayobami, Meghan Maguire Dahn, Anton Ivanov, Kyra Simone, Mengyin Lin, Lynn Brown, and Jason and I will be introducing folks one by one. And during our intermission, we're going to have the current issue for sale, and if you subscribe, you also can just take this home with you. So we have a flyer with a QR code if you'd like to do that. So this is on some of your seats here. And I met some of you here today who are new to fence, and we love that. We want all of our events to bring in people who are just finding fence. And I remember what that was like for me back in 2006, finding fence. So you can find that story in the editor's note for 39. That was in the beginning of the transition where Jason, myself, and Rebecca each wrote parts of it, and I wrote about what it was like for me to find fence and to find friends there and to find a place where I felt like I could really explore everything that was possible in writing, and I found friends there. And so I just want to put our mission out into the room also. So Fence's purpose is to maintain this venue in print, oral, and digital forms for writing that speaks across genre, sociocultural niche, and ideological boundary as accessibly as it can, such that Fence publishes largely from its unsolicited submissions and is committed to the literature and art of queer writers and writers of color. Fence encourages collective appreciation of variousness by inhering collectively outside of the constraints of opinion, trend, and market. So that's what we do. Woo! That's why we're here, and that's why I keep doing this day in and day out, and that's why Jason keeps doing this day in and day out, and that's why Edgar was like so down to join us, and we're so grateful for your collaboration and presence as visiting editor of issue 40 and 41, and especially in our transition as Rebecca was passing it on to myself and Jason. And we also want to thank all of the genre editors, a couple who are here, Ashley Main, who's one of the fiction editors, Harris Locke, you might be here, or you might be in later, and also the translation editors of these past two issues, Oscar Moises Diaz and Miriam Yvette Marquez Carr. So we're so excited that we have a dedicated translation section, and Cole Swenson has been making really exciting selections for the next issue. So we're very excited about that, and we'd like to thank just everyone else who is here, who's contributing to Fence, including Nick and Matthew Rower, who I brought back to Fence. He was one of the founding poetry editors. And I know some of you already have your issue, and you know, I know it was like just arriving in mailboxes, so some of us are just starting to read it. And it's funny, Jason, Edgar, and I were just talking about how we were rereading it last night, and I was reminded of how, like, reading, I feel like I'm falling in love with the pieces all over again. Like, I saw them as they were in Submittable, and then laying them out, typesetting, and for a few of them I had ideas come up, like from the weird reading process that happens with typesetting. You know, and then they went through, like, editing and proofreading, you know, and you know, some of the genre editors are involved in editing, and Jason helped out especially with the feature, you know, and then Edgar worked closely with the folks in the section The Gods, which is so awesome. I reread that section last night, and like we've got basically 3 features in this issue, including the exchanges in the Fence and Experimental Sound Studio archives, where the Experimental Sound Studio in Chicago invited the sound artist Spencer Hutchinson to dive into the Fence archives, and then we invited this poet Alyssa Perry to dive into the Experimental Sound Studio archives. So there was this really awesome exchange. So I encourage you all to check that out, and Jason's gonna say, I'm gonna pass it on to Jason for kids.
Hello, everybody. Poetry has lost some people in the last week or so. A lot of people. Leslie Scalapino and Jerome Rothenberg, who I know Emily and I have both been very influenced by. Lynn and Ginny, I'm sorry. Lynn and Ginny. I've confused Mrs. Brown. So, yeah, so we've lost a lot of people, and on a very sad note, we lost Spencer Hutchinson last week, whose piece is in Fence, and he was amazing visual artist and sound artist, and in conversation with the Fence archives, he created a sound piece and did a performance with Alyssa Perry, who was in the Experimental Sound Studio archives in Chicago. They did a performance in Chicago, and then they both have work published in this issue. So I spent time talking on the phone and trading new electronic music that we were into. So at the end of the reading, we'll play some piece by Spencer, so you can hear it. And as Emily was thanking so many people, I'm going to thank Emily for making sure I got here today, and for all the collaborative work we've done together, because we are co-directors and we are engaged in this kind of intense collaborative experiment of how do you have two people who are kind of brainstorming and negotiating together on what can happen. And I think Edgar who has been, over this issue and the last issue, an incredible support and has done brilliant work as an editor. Let's just see in this issue, in this section, that he assembled called Gods.
And he's staying with us at Fence as editorial advisor.
Yes. But I'll say more about Edgar later when I actually introduce him. And also Ashley Main, who Emily recognized, also our kind of very intrepid fiction editor who has a great fiction editor's note, along with Edgar's editor's note at the beginning of this issue. And also, thank you to Leanne and Tony, wherever Tony is. He's back there. And Leanne and Tony are pillars of the poetry community, and I've known Leanne since I turned 19, on a bus on my birthday in Rhode Island. And I was going to ask, so like this place is called Torn Page, and as some of you may know, it's named in honor of Tony's parents, Rick Torn, the actor, Geraldine Page, the actor. I was just going to ask, Leanne, if you could like recommend a Rick Torn and Geraldine Page film for those who may have never seen it.
Well, Anson Berrigan once said that every generation had their favorite Rick Torn movie. Anson said his generation was Beastmaster.
That's the one.
I would say look at Sweet Bird of Youth by Tennessee Williams, and Rip and Geraldine met on Broadway in that play, and then the movie was made and Paul Newman got the gigolo role, and Rip played the gigolo with the princess on Broadway, but Rip is as the brother. So there's pictures out in the lobby from that, a still from that film. So Sweet Bird of Youth, Tennessee Williams, I would recommend that first.
Yeah, thank you. Great. Yes, so I'm moving on. Take a chance to take a turn to Sweet Bird of Youth. And then Beastmaster.
There's lots of Sweet Bird of Youth here.
Yeah. Let's see. So we have. Don't be confused by 2 QR codes at once. Okay. They are different. One is to subscribe to Fence or to donate to Fence, and the other is a code that will give you a free 30-day electronic subscription to our digital archive, which is a searchable archive of each issue since the first in 1998, and it looks just like it does in front of you. It looks like the printed one. So this is a great free little treat. So you won't only be able to get this issue, but all of them. And so in this issue, this big meaty issue, let's see, along with the people who are going to be reading tonight, we have Ray Armentrout, Tim Liu, Sia Conrad, Sam Ace, Ariel Lutz, Rachel Blau Duplessis, who gave us these color collages, which are in here. And also Amy Sarah Carroll, who's has a kind of you have to build it yourself.
You can cut them out.
Yeah, it's a 3-dimensional poem. So there's here, and there are instructions on how to assemble it. It says, cut through the dashed off lines designed to undermine the Voting Rights Act of 1965, Alvin fold continuous lines that connect historical precedent to imminent present. Assemble the box of a loss of text by whatever means necessary, tape or code. Adhere to the future that's meant to be multidimensional. So that's what this one is, the ballad of the ballad. So if you build it, take a picture and send it to us. And the last thing I wanted to say is about the cover image itself, which is a photograph that I took. This mural is painted around an opening under a train tunnel for a creek to flow through. And in 1916, one of the first, along with like the Titanic, there was a huge media frenzy around a series of shark attacks that were happening on the New Jersey shore. So a shark was kind of swimming up north and picking people off, every couple days. And then it went up the Brereton Bay and then up what's called the Matawan Creek. And it's very sad, but several children were on break from child labor law, pre-child labor law factory. And we're taking a 15-minute break and all jumped in the river and were swimming. So several were devoured, and then the town blacksmith jumped in to try to save them, and he was also attacked and eaten. The shark was later found off of Hudson River, off of New York City, and had the remains of many people inside it, and its jaws were exhibited at a variety shop in the Lower East Side until the 70s. Anyway, so I convinced first my brother and my nephew to go. There's a place called A Canoe for You, which rents kayaks that you can take up this creek. And I went with my brother and nephew. We got to the other side of this, and the tide was so high that the water was up to the top of the top shark's teeth. So we couldn't get in. Turned around. About a week and a half later, I went with two of my friends, and managed to get, this is what I wanted, was this picture of someone kayaking into the shark's mouth. And moments after, my other friend fell out of his kayak, and then there was an enormous thunderstorm, and we scrambled onto the banks. And I had poison ivy for a month.
Okay, he's not exaggerating.
It's not I mean, I may have all been made up. I may have found this may be AI, I may have generated this. But I guarantee you, I have this poison ivy scars if you'd like to see it. That's all I got. Turn it over to our amazing visiting editor, Edgar Garcia.
Jason, you left me with a really awkward intro. How could I possibly follow up on that?
Well,
let alone pivot on that.
Well, it was meant to go specifically with the name, the section Poets and Gods. So
let me
try.
something
godly.
Yeah. So shark is actually a very interesting word. Because, you may or may not know this, it's the only Mayan word that enters directly into the English language without transiting through Spanish. Right? Spanish says tiburón for shark. Right? Why do we say shark for this strange marvelous instance? It's because an actual king in 1629 or something like this, an English privateer, captain named John Hawkins or Dawkins was out there battling the Spanish galleons, and as the bodies were dying and being shot, falling over into the water, the sharks were in a feeding frenzy, right? His Mayan, I think we were talking about the Caribbean, his Mayan informants were saying, shuck, 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 which is the Mayan word for shark. And that sealed itself directly into the English language. Completely bypassing Spanish. So there's my best attempt. Maybe the only Mayan word which comes directly into English. Okay, so I've done my best to curate a kind of conversation within fence and for fence and by way of fence in the few years that I've been a visiting editor-in-chief. And what I thought in my whole way through in that endeavor was, how can I fuck shit up? Like, how can I complicate things? How can I trouble things? How can I push things forward? And the best way that I imagined was by going directly for the problems. I love problems. So and the first issue that I did on this note was very too on the nose, but I thought it was really good. What's the problem with American poetry? And I asked a bunch of poets to write this. And I didn't ask poets that I knew who, like, that I kind of that I could precipitate the answer. I asked people that were kind of like, a little bit angry on the outsides. So if you're interested in that question, what's the problem with American poetry today? Check out that issue. I guess that was issue 40. For this issue, I moved to the next taboo topic of dinner conversation, from politics to religion. Initially, I imagined that I would put together an issue on Catholicism. Because as a man who America was made, Central America, Catholic, I just sort of joke in my life, but like, I've encountered so many people who like are still of the faith, even though they don't agree with the faith. But quickly that like kind of eroded and complicated and expanded and dimensionalized. It was just a straight up conversation about the gods. And then that made me realize that actually Catholicism is all about the gods. That's why it's still so appealing to so many people. So this issue to me, my last issue for thanks, is the poets and the gods. I'm very proud of it. I think it's a wonderful issue, not in the smallest way because of my doing, but really because of the people who were involved with it. Like you guys, like everybody who brought it together. So thank you all for making it such a dynamic conversation. I have one quote to share before I read some poems that I think are consonant with the topic. And the quote is from Bolivian Marxist theorist, Marxist indigenous theorist, political theorist, Javier Sanguinas, in which he says, "The gods are signs that manable in historical time, that contradict it and make it incongruent with itself." I think that's great. It's exactly what myth does in our everyday life. Myth is, to me, where the politics actually happens. The realm of the imaginable is still imaginable. You know, Hannah Arendt's thing, like the organizing locus is the table in the room, and we all kind of organize ourselves around the table. It's a very secularist idea. What the fuck happens if you take the table out? You don't have to actually look at each other, right? The gods necessarily. Thank you all for bringing that issue to life. I'm going to read some poems that are in the spirit of that issue and of that conversation. They're not in the journal. Seems kind of gauche. Isn't it better to publish your own poems? So these are translations and adaptations of the 16th century Cantares Mexicanos, which are a collection of Nahuatl language poems put to paper in the 1580s, about 50 years after Spanish colonialism had happened. So you have a context that is quite typical of indigenous literature, where, yes, they were written by indigenous people, but at the same time, it's already complicated by the desires, facts, necessities, intentions of colonialism. So it's kind of memory, kind of imagination, kind of wish, kind of just poetry. And so these are my riffs, my meditations, my engagements with cantares mexicanos. And I'll just read about The other thing I should say is the moment they're remembering pre-colonial Mexico, so by 1580s, but the moment they're remembering is interesting. Also, a moment of deep internecine warfare. So it's like they're remembering warfare in time. There was never a time of peace. It was never about. It's always history of war. Cantar es cantar es cantar dar es cantar dar es cantar es cantar es cantar es cantar es cantar dar es cantar dar es cantar es. Last night, I dreamt that I was employed as a suicide prevention specialist in ancient Mesoamerica. We had no phones then, so no hotline to call or anything like that. I held these gatherings going place to place for people to tell me their stories and songs and songs about others. If anything seemed amiss with someone's emotional creation, we would bring them into crafts therapy of various kinds and plan them meaningfully. Sometimes I would bring them to help me with my work. In my dream, depression, anxiety, and suicide were pervasive in the ancient, in the gritty and unforgiving world of ancient times. I stayed so busy with my job. I knew it was a dream because in a few hours I saw Claude Lévi-Strauss in his hotel room in Brazil, anxious about having to go out and do actual field work in the Amazon, and just hated it. He hated that he would have to go out there in the discomfort of all that. He just wanted to stay in his hotel room, smoke, write, sleep, repeat, and say he would help. Then I could see that he was writing to his mother. He seemed so full of familiar human folly. I wanted to take him with me to help me with my work. I kept saying to myself, so human, all too human. I will die if I don't wake up here. I know that residue of something I've read or heard, but I just not coughed out, not safe. Night only water, fish eyes, royal out to ribs that float over a faded pale page. They've come out of the water with a taste for my talk. Today, again, is a day for the giant mammalians who long ago retreated with boulder walls to ocean depths. One crisis. Is there dragon fruit or humming jade for little birds in shady colonnades? Is there any multitude for the displaced and dead retinues? Subdued like mountain ruins, they say, in diamond lakes. It sort of hurts to speak. I think I have a sore throat. You're probably sick. Mask up if you go out. I see them thus in masks, prattling hummingbirds, barking geese, quetzals in the guise of old lords, emperor whales in white sheets. They cover the city in search of things to eat. 2. Green places. Look at me descend into holy total entertainment. Places of screeching fun, speech overhead, not her, screamed a minion. Here no creature gets it wrong, no intellectual amends to perpend in all day long. Perfection is clay in the end, not what the plow did. Yeah. 8. You have to remember the political crisis that we're living in. Mesoamerica, mid-1500s. If it's familiar to you, it's not. A politician has little to do when gone are the old reckonings. A hairdresser has little to fix when gone are the catoptrics. How could one read or perceive a people who no longer see themselves in the mirror, let alone see themselves in each other? Would that I could fetch old glass, shattered by the new blue bricks. I put it back together at last. And this would be called iconoclastic. Yes, we've got new life in Christ, precious life, a blessing of the homogenists. To put our memories back in order would break the spell of those once sayers. Would that I could fetch old shards, I'd take them back to the underworld and show them to the princes there, sleeping shattered to converse. So, the cantaras are political, pre-colonial and post, or pre-colonial and colonial. But some of them are just like straight up emo, just like human emotions. What I was trying to get at was a tonal equivalence between the 1580s and Mesoamerica and the 1580s in the English language. So that's why I'm like 2%. Quiet. Or skeletons. Number 9. Truest regrets. I'm always upset. Apologies, I'm perpetually surly. I try to help myself and yet no luck reaches me particularly. I don't necessarily want the riches. I wail and it's ruefully wretched. It's time to die, I worry. And maybe then again with old friends, happy, fortunate in their company. Here, I hurry to scarcely depend on the chief will of innate functionaries. I've neither the spirit or friends. I wail, and it's timidly I too. It's time I die, I think. Let no one's heart be hurt to hear it. My blues aren't especially unique. I caught a bad wind somewhere in my orbits. Now, I'm just another planet of weak. How do you feel? Okay. Okay, that's amazing. 91 Nahuatl language songs, the greatest collection of indigenous poetry in the Americas, truly that like has a kind of ambiguous relationship between pre-colonial and colonial. Just like the Confucian blues, right? Like Confucius did this exact same thing. He went out and collected the songs that were out there. So it's a exact same kind of project. And so I'll read one more. To really seal the real truth, so that I'll be able to read these kind of auras, but so the
These are all great, Edgar. I'm sure wish everyone
No, I know, I'm sorry, I'm holding it up here. I'm kind of obsessing over the last one.
Give us the best, please.
You've already sealed the deal. It's just like icing.
Okay, all right. I'll read one of the early ones. I was going to go to the end, but I'll read one because this one is conscientious objector. I think it's of the spirit of the times. So the Mexica were always everywhere, and they were an empire. People tend to romanticize the Mexica, the Aztecs, whatever. They were actually an empire. They were always at war, and within a society that is always at war, there will, of course, be conscientious objectors. And so this is a poem from a conscientious objector talking about a famous warrior. And this is what I will. Number 6, conscientious objector. Your magnificence I can barely address in my shallow loneliness. How thin what I might then expect from you is, famous de la Patsikatsanitzing. You were called to this earth a while to live in a child's peace, but then the fashions dressed you up, and well you wore the war skirt and sash. But the bare truth is there's war, always war, with its rage and hate, modifying even how friends congregate. I saw you, de la Patsikatsanitzing, in troubled straits, and speaking straight, I said less than manly things. To hell with empire and its overgrowth. To hell with the flowers that connervate. To hell with the South and the East. God damn them that injunct our ease with commands to obtain without cause, to siege, to bring bloody rain on our neighbors' walls. You wanted all of that, but not for itself. The problem is, though war we might hate, it's in war we learn whom to celebrate. Ah, it's this, that la Patsikatsanitzing.
Alright, we've got another set of readers coming up right now.
I don't think it's actually kind of they're on the stand.
Alright, so our next reader, and so there are some seats up in the front. If anybody out in the field wants to come in. Our next reader is a translator, Garrett Phelps. He's a co-translator of the Argentinian avant-garde poet / fiction writer slash playwright. Osvaldo, this is my favorite name I've heard in Osvaldo Lamborghini. And so if you want to like read along, it's on page 106. I don't know what Garrett's going to read, but the poem that is in Fence is called Divorce, and it's on page 106. And the only reason I suggest that, if Garrett happens to read this poem, is the formal work here that the translators did is really nice. And we don't have people, we don't have bios of people at the end of Fence, at the last pages. We instead have a kind of what I'm currently into, what I'm reading list. And Garrett writes, right now I'm deep into volume 2 of UFOs and the National Security State by Richard Dolan, Banana Fish by Akemi Yoshida, and the collected works of Dick Wick Hall, a long-forgotten American humorist from the 1920s, who spent his life in the same godforsaken part of western Arizona that my family is from. So now the work of Osvaldo Lamborghini, read by Garrett Phelps.
So nice to meet you. See that, Emily and Jason. It's an honor to be in this. It's the first time I've seen this. And there's so many friends.
That's enough for the people upstairs.
Yeah, the people way back there.
Wait, let me make some water first.
I'll get you some water.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, this is a poem, Jason said, called Divorce by the poet and novelist Osvaldo Lamborghini. These are done, this one was done, they all are, collaboration with the poet Kyra Simone. This selected poems of Lamborghini's work is coming out poetry books.
Garrett,
Yeah.
it's like the windows open, we can hear something from the street. It's like you really have to, like
I'll
you're
project.
like friends on the other side of the playground shouting bullets.
Let's do it. Let's do it. The Divorce. Prologue. Nothing more is necessary. Faith in the rattle. Faith. In verse, in shadow, a historic anecdote like a filthy ghost. Through luck, water will flow from legitimate foundations. Legitimate. Freud's discovery is the source, the rattle, the source of bubbling, crystalline water, of what was taken, white stone, the white stone, divorce, divorce, impossible, real. I can only be with my people, who are others, this paranoid resurgence of the aphorism like Portia's of generalized idiocy. Hearts is Lamborghini has a bunch of like alter egos, and Hearts is his German alter ego. Big death, good God, how do you not long for it? Big death, how do you not long for this? We are in it. When we divorced, we didn't even say goodbye. I remember your voice. Smart ass. A subject, let's say, one fine day reads, fish on the grill. I swear it isn't salmon. Ready, look alive, but how? With pricks and needles. Subject, me and the wife, we were never very close. Every humiliation so long as you come back to me. Bullshit, what came before. Bullshit, and persists like tobacco, sketched smoke. And yesterday was like today, day of the most untouchable stars. Teary-eyed, the day of the day, the day of the day to delay the day of beauty. It's so bad being bad, but always moral, always worse. It's so to be bad, so worse than why? Why? No, my aquiline wife got lost in my love and abandons me, doesn't want me anymore, doesn't love me anymore. Her name was, or she called herself, Mine Is. That's her name, but not because, not even for me, not even for the brown-skinned ruffian with British money, not for him either, who brought back from a small revolver, Lucia, silver, a jewel, nonsense, black on white. Bullshit. But caramba, if I hadn't done anything, realized only for an instant a mad temptation, passenger, like something properly celestial in the divine, and away we go. It was proofreading, it was leaving, something a lot like confessing. Ding dong, where did the editor go? Oh, live, olive, stutter, television is trash. Yes, I threw a spear. I play the Bobby, the Devo, invert whatever. I lay. How was I not going to get divorced? The error, convulsive, leaping, bitter faint to revitalize a trance. Dryer-like, the attempt to owe alive. I make it. The flowers around the house, pluck your boredom and display it, honey. They show it off. They take it from the house toward the green plain. I, who have coveted my brother's wife, I, who have coveted my brother. It begins in schizophrenia, says me, and ends in femininity after a short detour through love, says me for all I know. But how I liked that body. What's the point of a world where only lunatics have something to say? Is there one? You sure? Pause, some versification, salt, I love you's verification, very and ficat, except that, silence, cage. Silence is a gift from the Virgin, Mother of God, thanks be to God. Did it already start? Hearts, that body will become woman, and that woman, body. The present explained the past, so long confused. It was lost, dead language, soldier of sweetness and fava, tender fava. Youthless soul since birth, the presumed enemy, the double face, monotone narcissism, calmly plays its hand and lies like nothing to gather.
Thank you, Garrett. Yes, Garrett has to leave. Please go.
Or another thing, but thank you. This is
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Garrett. Don't get into your mindset. You also can leave. As soon as you're leaving, we're locking the doors. I'm just kidding. But our next reader is Radhiyah Ayobami, and she's going to be one of two events representatives to the International Literary Seminars, which is a program that is, as of recently, it has been held elsewhere, but as of now, is going to be, what's the name of the island? Lamu.
So they already went.
Oh, they already read. Okay. So both Kyra Simone, who just spoke, and Radhiyah went to these classes, readings, worked on the island of Lamu off of Kenya, and I don't know, do you want to say a word about how it was?
It was amazing. It was a writing program. Like,
Right, I mean, just like, what did you see when you were like moving around?
we were in a small like seaside village on this island where there's no cars. It's all donkeys. It's a UNESCO heritage site, so it's like going back in time, kind of. And then spent a couple days in Nairobi. Also, it was a 2-week workshopping and writing and traveling. So it was
Yeah,
great.
and so Vince and ILS had a contest for everyone. We've had one already for the next session, and it's a great partnership because it also, it's an opportunity for African writers and other writers from around the world to interact and get to know each other's work. So, along with Kyra, Radhiyah went, and Radhiyah has her reader's note at the back of the issue as well. And she writes, "I love lyrical writers who open a space for me to dream and co-create the story. Some of my perennial favorite authors are Ntozake Shange, Buchi, Emecheta, and Maya Angelou. I remember reading these authors sitting barefoot on the porch as a child, and they opened worlds to me that I didn't know existed. I saw lovely, long-limbed brown girls dance and weave in love in Charleston and Oakland and Suzaki's prose. I was in a small village in Nigeria, eating ham and yam under a palm tree when I sat with Vinci. Maya was most familiar to me. Both our southern grandmothers rocked and hummed and cooked for the family in big pots, and were the spiritual basis of home. Maya's story was my story, and that unlocked the power in me to write." Hey, Radhiyah.
Since you mentioned Kenya, I'll share a little piece that I did about that, and then I'll read a little piece from the book. Nairobi, a city of music. Swahili rap and Swahili live jazz bands where women sing in cornrows in African dresses, and the way people greet you as you walk into almost any place. Karibu, you are welcome, is its own song. The siren call of prayer floats from the masjid over reggae spilling from matatus, named My Chick Bad and Jesus Saves, and Afrobeat jams from the open doors of restaurants where the menu simply says, meat. And even though you ain't a meat eater, that combination of spices is calling you and you can't even tell what it is. It's like garlic and coriander and cumin and Bollywood and English tea and mama cooking over coals in the village and some other magic only present in a place where the sky is lavender at twilight. Just before dawn is your favorite time when the soft melody of Arabic weaves through the city for Fajr prayer, and you open the glass doors wide and step out onto the balcony. You highfalutin now, so it ain't porch. Spread a blanket, make your prayer, and do yoga, and sit in the space of awe that a granddaughter of sharecroppers, a sometimes substitute teacher, a single mama, and a well-seasoned woman made it to East Africa on a wing and a prayer, and the good wishes of folks quietly put a little something in your collection plate and said go. And no matter how weary you get, because you do get weary, spirit always comes back to you with tenderness. Soon the city will wake. Women with baskets on their heads and booze in their hips will walk these broken streets like they are the most beautiful thing. Men with cheekbones of carved wood will stare at your tattoos. Children will look and smile. You are different somehow, but their hearts are open. You will put on a loose dress and go to market with a cloth bag like all the other women, one small note in the symphony of this city, and turn all this melody into stories by and by.
There's one right here.
What?
That's okay. I got it.
Oh, do you need it?
It's okay. It's all right. I got it on the video.
Taylor's gonna have to really break.
Be careful. Be careful.
Sorry, but I just want to make sure you nailed it.
is intense.
It's intense in a lot of ways. So yeah, when you go to a place that's intense, it stays with you in a particular sort of way. Food, people, the land, all of that. So, like part of me is still there. Okay. Lita was washing Joe's shirts in a bucket when she heard her mama's voice speaking to her again. Joe hadn't been home for 10 days. Before that, they hadn't really been speaking for 10 days, except for a word or two spit out their mouths kind of sideways like watermelon seeds. Before that, he hadn't laid with her for the first 10 days of the month, even when she put a hand on the back of his neck at the dinner table, or touched his waist in passing as he stood smoking his pipe and looking at the front door far into the field. Their table was a little square, like the ones crammed into the corners of the juke joint shacks when folks wanted to go sit over a shot of moonshine in court for a few minutes, which meant leaning up on each other, sitting real close, knees touching, while the guitar screamed and folks swayed and dreamed they were somewhere away from bare feet and hot soil months on end, rough clothes and rough beds and rough handling by bosses and each other, cotton balls sticking fingers, husbands slapping wives, bosses tossing a crumpled dollar on the table after a day's work, and that dollar already gone into the bellies of children. Life was hard digesting sometimes. So they swayed and dreamed of softness they had never known, like naps in the afternoon in new clothes. And they touched each other's knees under the wooden tables before the rumbling of the next day began. India, which is a little paragraph on India, which I hope to go back really soon. Okay. An elder calls while I'm lounging by the water at high noon and says, "Don't smoke any reefer in India." And I can't help but laugh in a country where folks line the beaches with candlelight and sing in the evening, where the gods in the temples are made of rubies and gold, where 50 and 60-year-old yoga teachers stand on their heads easily as children in an almost 100-degree heat, have enough strength in their bodies to midwife the new self you are becoming and say, "Come on through." This place where Indian women anoint you head to toe with oil and bless you with a song centuries old, where people chant to Lakshmi as you light candles in the brass lamp soaked in ghee, where the jewelry shop on a country road you experience the weight of a diamond bracelet that shone like the eyes of the gods. This place you kept waiting not to like and that draws you deeper every day. Because even across the road and behind your closed wooden door, you can hear the roar of the Arabian Sea. All the elements here are powerful. And this elder says, "Don't smoke reefer." And really, what you want to tell her and address her like the Indians address you is, "Madame, India is reefer."
So next we have Mengyin Lin, and I really admire her story, which is called Lucy. And I picked out from folks' reading lists, which Jason and I are invoking here, and I found, picking out ones from each one. So one of the works that Mengyin recommends is called The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming and choosing to support Fence and a independent literary magazine on a Sunday that you could be doing anything. So I hope you continue to make wonderful life choices. I am reading my story, Lucy, and I'm reading from my own printout because I consider not telling you guys this, but I have since revised the story, and I think, and I like revision, and I think it's wonderful that our work, our stories get to exist in previous versions in different time and space, and that story's great, and this is what I'm doing now. So
yeah.
and it's called Lucy. Oh, and it will be part of my story collection, which will come out in, hopefully you'll still remember, in 2026. It's called the Memory Museum, which you would see the connection there. Hopefully you will still remember in 2 years. And Grey Wolf is publishing it. I'm reading from the second part of the story, so I have a little bit of setup. So the narrator recently found out that she has an asymptomatic brain tumor, so death has been on her mind, and she has not told her parents about her condition. And you'll hear the name Lucy, which is what she chose to name her tumor. And the story starts at the airport, and she's waiting for her flight to Shanghai, where she's from and where she will have to face her parents. And another note is that the narrator is an only child as part of the one-child generation in China. Okay, before I get started. I hesitated in front of the recycling bin before tossing the Blizzard cup into the trash and joining the line to board. I'd taken the same China Eastern flight once or twice a year for the last 3 years and had always felt like I was teleported home before I even set foot on the plane. Standing among the Chinese passengers, I felt a sense of solace that I hadn't known that I needed. I had, without realizing, gotten used to existing as an alien, which was what I was on my immigration paperwork. The comfort now came from looking the same as people around me, the relief of being invisible. I thought for a second that these were my people, but immediately sensed the falseness in that possessive phrase, as I remembered how often I felt out of place in China, where people thought I should love, hate, and do the same things as they did, just because I too was Chinese. I couldn't truthfully say if I was more of an alien here or there. Beneath my longing for going home, there was always the simmering dread, and it was time to return to New York for a new school year. The same cocktail of conflicting emotions would again monopolize my hours, tearing me apart. It was as if home was always elsewhere, and so was life. In line, a young man stood in front of me. His sweatshirt said the name of an elite New England college. His parents, who looked my parents' age, stood on either side of him, both shorter than their son. The father wore a baseball hat with DAD written under the name of the college, which looked particularly tacky with his green, oversized polo shirt that made him look like a prepubescent teenager in his father's wardrobe. It was a terrible fashion choice that my father would have made, but I never bought my father such a hat. I gathered from their conversation that the son had recently graduated, and they had taken a family road trip out west to the national parks. I had taken a similar graduation trip with my parents. It was a popular choice for Chinese parents who were taken by the American wonders of nature that require no translation and unimpressed by the country's meager history and culture. I wondered if his parents also had a hard time with fast food and Applebee's being the only dining options, and also protested by eating ramen in their hotel rooms. I wondered if they also took 50 pictures at every scenic spot, then another 50 with different combinations of people in them. I wondered if they had also broken into silent fights and made up by acting like nothing had happened. When the father put his arm around his son's shoulder, the son stepped forward just far enough to avoid physical contact. The father let his arm stretch in an awkward reach, like a person probing in darkness, and gave his son's shoulder an extended squeeze. I wondered what the middle-aged couple would do if their son died. I thought of my childhood bedroom in our Shanghai apartment. Every time I settled there, I could see the fort that I'd carefully built around myself in America crumble before my very eyes. And I would, as if touched by a fairy's magic wand, revert to the child who did not know how to tuck away the feathers of her vulnerabilities. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to keep Lucy from them, but I wasn't ready either to let Lucy bifurcate their life like she did mine. I'd picked an aisle seat because I like to stay hydrated on these unending flights and use the bathroom frequently. When I got to my seat, the two next to me were already occupied. In the middle sat a young Chinese girl who looked about 6 or 7, and her father by the window, a Chinese man a few years older than me. I sat down in my seat and saw the Pixar movie Coco playing on the girl's iPad. With big headphones on, she was so entranced that she might not have noticed me at all. I had always been a sucker for Pixar movies. When Coco came out, I had seen it in theater and sobbed in the dark as the credits rolled. The girl must have started the movie not so long ago. The little boy, Miguel, had just arrived in the land of the dead. I wondered if she would cry like I did, about the porous yet impenetrable border between the living and the dead, about forgetting what you want to remember, about having a dream and not apologizing for being a cliche, about loving and hating and embracing and escaping your family all at once. When I looked up from my iPad, the father smiled politely at me, and I realized the corner of my lips too had been raised. Soon after, the doors were closed. The plane began to taxi as the safety video played on the small screen in front of me. Although I always thought that bringing up the fact that everyone might die on this very flight at a time when no crew or passenger could disembark was a completely morbid idea, I watched the video carefully, reviewing the 2 ways to inflate a life vest and memorizing the location of the closest emergency exits. It was the first time I had been on a plane in after Lucy time, and I wasn't sure what edged me closer to my mortality, Lucy or the flight. The plane made a U-turn onto the runway and joined the queue for takeoff. The father had stolen the girl's iPad away. The cabin lights were shut. I closed my eyes and tried not to think about the fact that a large percentage of aviation accidents happen during takeoff and landing. The plane started to accelerate. It was getting loud, so loud that I couldn't hear my own thoughts. My body had an impulse to fold into itself. My right hand was clenching my left hand. My eyelids were crashing into as if to crush each other. Some images flashed across my mind, and I recognized them to be the inside of an MRI machine. Their deep tunnel of the belly, their ivory metal interior, their futuristic noise, their walls closing in on me from all sides. I felt the paralysis of not being able to get out or move a hair for as long as I was told to. My limbs felt like they were detached from my trunk, floating on their own. I tried to lengthen my breaths, but the oxygen inside my veins seemed to be forcing the wrong direction. I was almost gasping when I felt my hand on my forearm. Without opening my eyes, I put my hand over it. It was soft and small. Hey, it's okay, it's over. The little girl's voice said in an American accent. I registered the impossible likeness of the giant metal bird levitating off the ground. The head-pounding noise had subsided. I blinked my eyes open. Look, with her free hand, the girl pointed at the oval window next to her father. We were indeed flying away from human civilization and into the clouds. I let go of her hand. I see, thank you, I said. I swallowed and tried to compose myself. Was that a panic attack? I'll stop there.
So we're gonna have an intermission, about 15 minutes, so y'all can hang out. And we have the new issue for sale in case you don't have it yet. Yeah, so come up and make yourselves at home.
Yeah, there's much more wonderful pieces of writing.
Yeah, more to come. Yeah, we got our second set. More to come.
Yes, let's do it. I would love for you to read in my series if you have some poems to read. So, yeah, let's do it.
I'm like, more of a fiction writer.
Yeah, but I can say that they're wrong. Yeah. I've done that before where I'm like, they're like, I'm gonna say it. This one's at McNally, like this, the bar area. Yeah.
Hit me up.
I will, that'd be amazing. I don't think I have your email, but I have Instagram. I don't know if that works, or I can find it.
I think you have my email. We communicated for like little lunch forever ago. So like, yes.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Then we're good. Then we're
Kyra
good.
Simone 11.
Perfect. There you go. Then I'll find it again. Thank you. Sorry, I forgot about that. That would be amazing. We can order books too. So I mean, it's a loose poetry series, but like.
You hang with poets.
can
count this kind of weight.
I love that.
Okay, everyone.
I did a separate.
Here we go.
No.
For those of you who have remained for this intimate portion of the we are going to have Meghan Maguire Dahn read. She has 2 poems in the current issue. After I introduce her, I'm gonna just took some pictures of you all, and I'm gonna Instagram that with one of the poems that she has that are in this issue. And from her reader's note, which you can read in full in the issue, I'm gonna read the second half. I get a lot from reading in Middle English, so I've been working my way through early Middle English texts, which is the title of the book. And there's Dickens and Wilson, very typical English names. For nonfiction, to write as if already dead by Kate Zambrino. A really lovely interview with poets from Small Art Press, and All Art is Ecological by Timothy Morton. And her book from Birdside Review Press from 2022 is called Dominion. Woo!
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for staying and listening, and thank you for inviting me to be a part of this and for putting me in this gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous object filled with wonders. I play this game with myself depending on the day. I like to figure out whether I think the shark is the gods or the shark is the poets or vice versa. So I kind of feel like we should take a poll. All right, so let's see. I have 2 in here and then I'll read one newer one. The first one, if you're reading along, it's on page 16. It's called Mending the Web. I started writing it after the Sandy Hook shooting. My niece and nephews and my sister and her husband live in Newtown, and so, it's something that has stayed with them as a family and me tangentially a lot. After it happened, I started researching like what goes into bulletproof vests, like how are they made, what kinds of protection can we set up for ourselves, and one of the things that when they're not using Kevlar, which can be expensive and heavy, one of the things they use is spider silk, which is very strong, of course. There's a great story also from 1916, which the story of the shark in the river reminded me of. I have my students sometimes go, the Library of Congress has this site called Chronicling America, which is just digitized high-res scans of newspapers. And the opening page is 100 years ago today, what was in the news. And it's everything from like a farming newspaper to the New York Post to whatever. So one day, in 1916, there was a story about a woman in Hoboken, and she would pay the little boys of Hoboken, or kids, the little kids of Hoboken, to go out and find spiders in the meadowlands and bring those spiders to her, because what she would do in this big old factory space with high ceilings like this was toss the spiders up in the air and catch their silk, right, and wind it up on the bobbin. Why would she do this? Because the kind of increased militarization of the U.S. demanded that there be more sights for rifles, and spider silk is thin enough and strong enough to make a sight that won't obscure when you're looking through it and won't fray when it's pulled tight. So that just like these little boys itching the things for rifle sights, and it's such a great image. Mending the web. You eat your repair. The bridge built. Again, spider silk to the first thresh softens, becomes rigid the more a body fights. Mend the rift, buzzing with proteins, tremulous and cooperative. Your birth gathered a web, pressed it there, the future salve. What connects sky to earth? 4 spindles, lightning to coal, sheet lightning to mother of pearl, lightning and lastly white shell. Move and move sky. Push sun through the warp batinet, sunspots convalesce. A patch is good, but a bolt is regal. Tip your wrist, harness 1,200,000 orb spiders, make gold. Gold to the shoulder and gold to the hem, indestructible as your foes. Make the trees weep, lost all the left behinds, the rift of sky. The bark of their grief climbed their thighs, pulp-crested, tears as sap. They held you, suspended you suspended, singing Eat the Damage, weave silk again. And this is Trial Run for Ascension at the Point of Failure. I love tardigrades, they're a great animal. We use them really atrociously when you think about it. So this was a study there as space exploration is, I don't know, diversifying, whatever. We begin to imagine traveling farther than we have before. One of the things scientists want to study is what happens to bodies at increased kind of rates of travel, and so they use tardigrades to study that. And they do it by making little hollow-tipped bullets and putting a single tardigrade into the hollow-tipped bullet and firing them into targets until they die.
This is real?
This is real.
Yeah, tardigrades are like so incredible as animals. Like, make sure you.
No, I know.
Yeah.
They can like survive deep space.
Right.
Yeah.
So they
And
can, yeah.
quantum entanglement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
They're
like,
like
you
the
use
most-
that as like bullet technology?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
so they tap out at 23,000 feet per second. as it turns out.
That is batshit.
So here we go. Trial Run for Ascension at the Point of Failure. And that's proof again that your Catholicism never leaves you.